Imagine a world where weddings were not just about saying "I do," but about rewriting history, forging empires, and throwing parties so epic they bankrupt nations. Forget your average engagement photo shoot. For the Medici, Florence's original power family, a wedding was a declaration of dominance, a strategic maneuver, and an explosion of wealth that would make today's billionaires blush. These weren't just love stories, they were calculated gambits, dazzling spectacles designed to send a clear message. The Medici were here, they were powerful, and they were ready to rule. Get ready to dive into 5 of the most extravagant, politically charged weddings in history, where the glitter of gold masked razor-sharp ambitions. Number 5. Ferdinando I de' Medici and Christine of Lorraine. The year is 1589. Florence buzzes with an energy unlike anything seen before. The Medici family, rulers of Tuscany, are preparing for a wedding that will cement their place on the European stage. Ferdinando I de' Medici, who had once been a cardinal in the Catholic Church, made a truly shocking move. He had traded his cardinal's robes for a ducal crown after his brother Francesco I and Francesco's wife, Joanna of Austria, both died mysteriously. Ferdinando, suddenly Grand Duke, needed an heir and a powerful alliance. His choice was Christine of Lorraine, a French princess who happened to be the granddaughter of the legendary Catherine de' Medici, former Queen of France. This marriage was not just about 2 people coming together. It was a massive diplomatic play designed to re-establish the Medici's strong ties with the powerful French monarchy, a relationship that had frayed under Francesco I. Florence craved the political stability and prestige that such a connection could bring. The journey of Christine from France to Florence was an event in itself. She traveled with an enormous entourage, her every stop a public display of her importance, and the honor being bestowed upon the Medici. When she finally arrived in Florence, the city transformed into a living stage. Triumphal arches, covered in allegories, and Medici symbols spanned the streets. Tapestries hung from windows, their rich colors waving in the spring breeze. Musicians played fanfares from balconies as the procession moved through cheering crowds. The atmosphere was electric, every Florentine eager to witness the spectacle and glimpse their new Grand Duchess. The Florentine government, under Ferdinando's direction, spared no expense. They wanted to make an indelible impression on the French court and the rest of Europe. The wedding ceremony itself was held with immense pomp and circumstance. The couple exchanged vows in the magnificent Florence Cathedral Santa Maria del Fiore, its dome a symbol of Medici ambition and Florentine ingenuity. The interior was decorated with exquisite silks and flowers, the air filled with the scent of incense and the sound of a grand choir. Ferdinando, dressed in lavish ducal robes, and Christine, in a gown adorned with countless pearls and jewels, presented a picture of regal splendor. Every detail, from the blessings of the highest church officials to the solemn pronouncements, was carefully choreographed to highlight the sanctity of the union and the power of the families involved. The attendance of ambassadors from across Europe underscored the diplomatic weight of the occasion. It was a clear signal that the Medici, despite their recent family tragedies, were back in the game. The festivities that followed the wedding ceremony were truly legendary, setting a new standard for Renaissance extravagance. Ferdinando, a man of refined tastes and a keen understanding of public relations, commissioned the greatest artists, musicians, and engineers of his time to create a series of unforgettable events. One of the most talked about spectacles was the aquatic battle staged on the Arno River. A mock battle between Turkish galleys and Christian ships captivated the audience, complete with cannons firing, smoke rising, and oarsmen rowing furiously. This event was not just for entertainment, it subtly conveyed the Medici's influence in Mediterranean affairs and their role as defenders of Christendom, a clever piece of propaganda. The banquets were feasts for the senses. They were held in the Palazzo Pitti's grand halls. They featured tables groaning under the weight of exotic dishes, sculpted sugar creations, and an endless flow of fine wines. Elaborate allegorical dishes like edible castles or mythological scenes were presented to the awestruck guests. Musicians played delicate melodies, and acrobats and jesters performed between courses. The sheer quantity and artistry of the food were a testament to the Medici's wealth and their ability to command the finest resources. The entire dining experience was a carefully orchestrated performance designed to overwhelm the senses and reinforce the image of Medici opulence. But the true highlight of Ferdinando and Christine's wedding celebrations were the theatrical performances. These were not simple plays, they were intermezzi, elaborate musical and dramatic interludes performed between acts of a main comedy. For this wedding, 6 intermezzi were staged, each one more dazzling than the last. They featured incredible special effects using complex machinery to create flying gods, descending clouds, and sudden transformations. Sets were designed by renowned artists, costumes were embroidered with gold and jewels, and the music, composed by the leading talents of the day, was revolutionary. One intermezzo, La Pellegrina, featured innovative stagecraft that allowed characters to ascend and descend from the heavens, astonishing the audience. These performances were not merely entertainment, they were intricate allegories celebrating the harmony brought by the marriage, the glory of the Medici, and the triumph of virtue. They demonstrated Florence's cultural superiority and the Medici's ability to command the best artistic talent in Europe, further enhancing their soft power. Another significant display of grandeur was the jousting tournament held in the Piazza Santa Croce. Knights, dressed in shimmering armor, their horses bedecked with elaborate caparisons, charged at each other in a display of martial prowess. Banners bearing Medici lions and French fleur-de-lis fluttered in the breeze. The tournament, a nod to chivalric traditions, was another opportunity for public spectacle and a demonstration of the Medici's ability to host events on a grand scale. The crowds roared with excitement, caught up in the thrill of the competition and the pageantry. It was a vibrant affirmation of the Medici's authority and the strength of their new alliance. The gifts exchanged were equally extravagant. The dowry brought by Christine from France was substantial, a testament to the wealth of the French crown and a significant boost to the Medici coffers. In return, Ferdinando presented Christine with jewels of breathtaking value and a collection of precious art objects. These gifts were not just personal tokens, they were tangible assets that further solidified the economic ties between the two powerful families. The overall cost of the entire wedding celebration was astronomical. Historical records indicate that it ran into hundreds of thousands of scudi, an amount that would be equivalent to many millions of modern dollars. While some might question such spending, the Medici viewed it as a necessary investment. It was a strategic expenditure designed to bolster their diplomatic standing, impress their allies and rivals, and project an image of unassailable power and cultural sophistication. The wedding of Ferdinando I and Christine of Lorraine was a resounding success in achieving its diplomatic goals, forging a strong connection with France that would benefit the Medici for decades. Number 4. Francesco I de' Medici and Joanna of Austria. The year is 1565. Florence prepares for another monumental wedding, this time for the Grand Duke's son and heir, Francesco I. His bride is Joanna of Austria, the Archduchess of Austria, and a daughter of Ferdinand I, Holy Roman Emperor. This marriage was a monumental diplomatic coup for the Medici. It signified a direct alliance with the most powerful dynasty in Europe, the Habsburgs. Cosimo I de' Medici, Francesco's father, and the first Grand Duke of Tuscany, had worked tirelessly to secure this match. He sought to legitimize the Medici's relatively new ducal title and to firmly align Florence with the imperial power, protecting it from potential French ambitions and consolidating its position in Italy. The union was a clear statement that the Medici, once mere bankers, now belonged to the highest ranks of European royalty. Florence brimmed with anticipation, knowing the wedding would be an unprecedented display of their Grand Duke's power and influence. While Joanna's journey from Austria to Florence was meticulously planned and observed by chroniclers and diplomats across Europe. Her route was lined with crowds eager to see the imperial princess who had joined the Medici family. When she finally entered Florence, the city erupted in a meticulously orchestrated welcome. Temporary arches, designed by the city's foremost artists, stood like colossal sculptures along the route. These arches were not just decorative, they were emblazoned with symbols and allegories celebrating the union of the Habsburg and Medici houses, promoting themes of peace, prosperity, and imperial protection. Statues of Roman emperors and classical gods, alongside Medici emblems, adorned these structures, visually linking the Florentine dynasty to ancient imperial greatness. The streets were strewn with flowers and fragrant herbs. Windows were draped with tapestries of silk and gold. Trumpets blared, and drums beat a rhythmic welcome as Joanna's grand procession, featuring her extensive retinue and representatives of the Medici court, moved through the city. The entire spectacle was a carefully managed public relations triumph, designed to demonstrate the wealth and prestige of Florence and its ruling family to the imperial bride and her entourage. The wedding ceremony itself was a lavish affair held in the Florence Cathedral. The interior of the great basilica was transformed into a vision of opulence. Rich brocades and velvets, woven with gold and silver threads, covered the altars and hung from the columns. Thousands of candles illuminated the space, their flickering flames reflecting off the jewels worn by the assembled dignitaries. Francesco, dressed in ducal splendor, and Joanna, in a gown of incredible richness, exchanged vows under the watchful eyes of ambassadors and nobles from every major European court. The presence of such high-ranking guests, many of whom had traveled for weeks, was a testament to the diplomatic significance of the union. The solemnity of the religious rite was matched only by the grandeur of its setting, underscoring the spiritual and political weight of the marriage. Every aspect of the ceremony, from the elaborate vestments of the clergy to the precise positioning of the attendees, was designed to emphasize the power and prestige of both families. The celebrations that followed set a new benchmark for theatrical spectacle in Renaissance Europe. Cosimo I, always keen to project an image of cultural sophistication alongside political might, invested vast sums in these festivities. The highlight was a series of masques and intermezzi performed in the newly constructed Uffizi Theatre, a space specifically designed for such grand productions. These performances were not merely entertainment. They were elaborate allegorical plays, often drawing on classical mythology, where gods and goddesses descended from the heavens on intricate machinery, accompanied by choirs and orchestras. One famous sequence involved a massive artificial cloud that slowly descended, revealing costumed performers within. The mechanical ingenuity required to execute such feats was astounding, showcasing Florence's prowess in engineering and design. Costumes were encrusted with jewels and pearls made from the finest silks and velvets and designed by the leading artists of the day. The musical compositions were groundbreaking, often blending polyphony with new dramatic forms, foreshadowing the birth of opera. These theatrical displays served a dual purpose: to entertain the elite guests in an unforgettable manner and to subtly convey political messages about the Medici's divine favor, their role as bringers of peace, and their connection to imperial power. They were a vivid demonstration of Florentine cultural supremacy. Beyond the theater, the wedding celebrations included magnificent banquets held in the Palazzo Vecchio and Palazzo Pitti. The tables were laden with an astonishing array of food, prepared by the finest chefs in Italy. Exotic meats, intricately decorated pastries, and monumental sugar sculptures depicting mythological scenes or coats of arms adorned the feasts. Wines from the Medici's extensive vineyards flowed freely. The sheer scale of the catering and the artistic presentation of the dishes left guests speechless. Each banquet was a multi-hour event, punctuated by musical performances and sometimes even short dramatic pieces performed by costumed servants. These feasts were not just about eating, they were social events of the highest order, where alliances were subtly reinforced and networks solidified. A series of jousts and public games were also held, allowing the Florentine populace to partake in the general festivities. These events, often held in the Piazza della Signoria, were a mix of traditional chivalric display and more modern theatrical elements. Knights in splendid armor, often bearing the colors of the Medici and Habsburg houses, competed in feats of arms. The energy of the crowd watching these displays of skill and bravery added to the festive atmosphere. These public events served as a way to engage the wider populace, making them feel a part of the grand occasion and reinforcing the Medici's benevolent rule. The dowry Joanna brought was immense, including not just money, but also rights and claims that further enhanced the Medici's financial and territorial standing. In return, the Medici presented Joanna with an unparalleled collection of jewels, works of art, and sumptuously furnished palaces. These exchanges were not simply gifts between individuals, they were transfers of immense wealth and symbolic capital between two of Europe's most powerful families. The diplomatic goals of this wedding were clearly articulated to secure Florence's position within the Habsburg sphere of influence, to legitimize the Grand Ducal title through a direct imperial connection, and to project an image of unparalleled wealth and cultural sophistication. The wedding of Francesco I and Joanna of Austria was an undeniable success in achieving these aims, cementing the Medici status as a dynastic power. The immense cost of the celebrations, recorded in meticulous detail by Medici accountants, was seen as a worthwhile investment in the family's future and their standing on the European stage. Number 3. Eleonora di Toledo and Cosimo I of Medici. The year is 1539. Florence is still reeling from decades of political upheaval. The Medici had recently returned to power, but their rule was far from secure. Cosimo I of Medici, a young man of only 20, had ascended to the ducal throne after the assassination of his predecessor. He faced immense challenges, both internal and external. He needed to consolidate his authority, crush rival factions, and secure strong alliances to protect Florence's independence from powerful neighbors like France and the Holy Roman Empire. His chosen bride was Eleonora di Toledo, a Spanish noblewoman, the daughter of Don Pedro Alvarez de Toledo y Zuniga, the Viceroy of Naples. This marriage was a masterstroke of political strategy. It aligned Cosimo with the most dominant power in Europe at the time, Habsburg Spain. Spain controlled vast territories in Italy, including Naples, and its emperor Charles V was the most powerful monarch in Christendom. This alliance was not just a diplomatic goal, it was a matter of survival for the nascent Medici duchy. Eleonora's journey from Naples to Florence was a significant event in itself, closely watched by observers across Italy. She traveled with a formidable retinue, reflecting her family's wealth and prestige. Her arrival in Florence was met with a reception designed to impress. Cosimo, a shrewd politician, understood the power of public spectacle. The city was adorned with temporary architectural structures, triumphal arches, elaborate facades, and monumental gateways, all commissioned from the leading artists and architects of the day. These structures were not just beautiful, they were laden with symbolic meaning, featuring allegorical figures, classical motifs, and Medici and Toledo coats of arms, all subtly proclaiming the new alliance and the promise of peace and prosperity under Medici rule. Records from the time mention the vibrant colors of banners and tapestries hanging from every window, the scent of fresh flowers strewn along the streets, and the continuous sound of trumpets and drums. The Florentine populace lined the streets, eager to witness the grandeur and catch a glimpse of their new duchess, whose Spanish connections promised stability. The wedding ceremony took place in the chapel of the Palazzo Vecchio, the seat of Florentine power. The chapel, normally a place of quiet devotion, was transformed into a glittering space. It was decorated with the finest silks and tapestries and illuminated by countless candles. Cosimo, a young man determined to project authority, appeared in magnificent ducal attire. Eleonora, known for her regal bearing, wore a gown that historical accounts describe as being lavishly embroidered with gold thread and adorned with precious jewels, befitting her status as a Spanish grandee and future duchess. The vows were exchanged in a solemn ceremony witnessed by Florentine nobles, foreign ambassadors, and the most influential figures in the Florentine government. The presence of key Spanish representatives underscored the political significance of the union. It was a formal ratification of the alliance, not just between two people, but between two powerful political entities. The celebrations that followed were meticulously planned to showcase Florence's wealth and cultural prowess, while subtly reinforcing Cosimo's authority. The most significant event was a series of banquets and public spectacles held in the newly renovated spaces of the Palazzo Vecchio and Piazza della Signoria. Cosimo, with Eleanor's sophisticated Spanish taste influencing the aesthetics, ensured that every detail exuded magnificence. The banquets were legendary, featuring an unprecedented array of dishes, some of which were culinary masterpieces in their own right. Contemporary accounts describe tables laden with roasted game, exotic fruits, and sugar sculptures so intricate they resembled miniature architectural wonders. Fine wines flowed freely, served in goblets of silver and gold. Musicians performed throughout the meals, providing a sophisticated backdrop to the feasting and conversation. These banquets were not just meals, they were carefully choreographed social events designed to impress the elite guests and create an atmosphere of joyful abundance. Beyond the feasting, the wedding celebrations featured elaborate public entertainments. A jousting tournament was held in the Piazza della Signoria, where knights in splendid armor demonstrated their skill and bravery. The piazza, usually the heart of Florentine political life, was transformed into a theatrical arena, with temporary stands erected for spectators. The energy of the crowd was palpable as they cheered for their champions and marveled at the display of chivalry. These tournaments served to entertain the populace and to showcase the martial strength and noble traditions associated with the Medici court. One of the most innovative and talked about events was the Festa del Fiume, a water pageant on the Arno River. Elaborate floats representing mythological scenes or allegories glided along the river, accompanied by musicians and costume performers. This spectacle, illuminated by torches and fireworks, was a truly enchanting sight, reflecting the Medici's innovative spirit and their ability to command impressive logistical feats. Records from the time describe how the reflections of the lights on the water created a magical atmosphere, captivating all who watched. This water parade demonstrated Florence's engineering capabilities and its capacity for grand artistic displays, further enhancing its reputation as a cultural capital. The dowry brought by Eleonora was considerable, providing Cosimo with a significant financial boost at a critical time for the young duchy. It included not just money, but also jewels and properties that further strengthened the Medici's economic position. In return, Cosimo presented Eleonora with an array of magnificent jewels, including a famous pearl necklace and a collection of precious objects. These exchanges were not merely personal gifts, they were strategic transfers of wealth and prestige, reinforcing the bond between the two families and their respective domains. The overall cost of the wedding celebrations, though not fully documented in a single sum, was immense, running into tens of thousands of ducats. Historians often refer to this wedding as a foundational moment for Cosimo's reign. The diplomatic goals were clear: to secure a powerful alliance with Habsburg Spain, providing crucial political and military backing for Cosimo's fledgling rule, to legitimize the Medici's position as dukes through a connection to imperial nobility, and to project an image of stability, wealth, and cultural brilliance to both internal and external audiences. The wedding of Eleonora di Toledo and Cosimo I de' Medici was an unqualified triumph, setting the stage for the next half-century of Medici dominance in Tuscany and establishing a powerful, enduring dynasty. Number 2, Maria de' Medici and Henry IV of France. The year is 1600. The Medici, now Grand Dukes of Tuscany, are at the zenith of their power and influence. Ferdinando I de' Medici, who had once been a cardinal, now ruled with shrewdness and ambition. His daughter Maria de' Medici was a prize catch on the European marriage market. Henry IV, King of France, a pragmatic ruler who had recently converted to Catholicism to secure his throne, was looking for a new queen. His marriage to Margaret of Valois had been annulled, and he needed an heir and a solid financial partner. The Medici, with their vast wealth and political connections, were an ideal choice. This marriage was an enormous diplomatic victory for the Medici. It not only secured a direct blood link to the most powerful monarchy in Europe, but also positioned Maria as a potential Queen of France, elevating the family status to unprecedented heights. It was a strategic move to reinforce the French-Medici alliance, which had been a cornerstone of their foreign policy for decades. Florence was consumed with preparations for an event that would dazzle the entire continent. The journey of Maria from Florence to France was a grand procession by land and by sea. She traveled with an astounding dowry of 600,000 scudi, a staggering sum that made her the wealthiest bride in Europe. This dowry was not just money, it was a clear statement of Medici financial power, a vital asset for a French king still rebuilding his kingdom after years of religious wars. Maria was escorted by a fleet of Florentine galleys, specially adorned for the occasion. When she disembarked in Marseille, she was met with a royal welcome, a testament to her new status. The journey itself was a diplomatic showcase, every stop an opportunity for the Medici to demonstrate their wealth and influence, and for the French court to acknowledge the significance of their new queen. The wedding ceremony itself was a marvel of Renaissance pageantry, though it took place by proxy in Florence. Both Henry IV, unable to leave France, sent his proxy, the Duc de Bellegarde, to stand in for him. The ceremony was held in the magnificent Florence Cathedral Santa Maria del Fiore. The interior was transformed into a dazzling spectacle, adorned with exquisite tapestries woven with gold and silver threads and illuminated by thousands of candles. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the strains of sacred music. Maria, dressed in a gown of unparalleled richness, adorned with jewels that caught every glimmer of light, moved through the cathedral like a queen already. The procession was attended by an array of European ambassadors, Italian princes, and the cream of Florentine nobility. The very act of the King of France marrying by proxy in Florence was a huge honor for the city and its ruling family, signifying the immense prestige the Medici now commanded. The celebrations that followed in Florence were truly legendary, designed to outdo all previous Medici festivities and leave a lasting impression on the French emissaries and the rest of Europe. Ferdinando I, known for his refined taste and vast resources, spared no expense. The highlight was a series of intermezzi and theatrical performances that pushed the boundaries of stagecraft and spectacle. These productions featured elaborate machinery, allowing actors to fly through the air, gods to descend from artificial clouds, and entire landscapes to transform before the audience's eyes. The sets were designed by leading artists using perspective and lighting to create stunning illusions. The costumes were made from the most luxurious fabrics, embroidered with gold and pearls, and adorned with real jewels. The music, composed by the likes of Jacopo Peri and Giulio Caccini, was revolutionary, embodying the new style that would soon evolve into opera. The Florentine wedding festivities for Maria de' Medici are often cited by music and art historians as a pivotal moment in the development of opera and Baroque art. These performances were not mere entertainment, they were sophisticated allegories celebrating the new alliance between France and Tuscany, emphasizing themes of peace, prosperity, and the glory of the Medici. They were a powerful demonstration of Florence's cultural preeminence and the Medici's ability to command artistic excellence. The banquets were monumental feasts held in the newly constructed Salone del Cinquecento in the Palazzo Vecchio, a space capable of accommodating hundreds of guests. And tables groaned under the weight of an astounding array of dishes prepared by an army of chefs. Descriptions from chroniclers speak of monumental sugar sculptures depicting mythological scenes, edible allegories, and exotic foods brought from far-flung lands. Each course was a performance in itself, presented with fanfare and accompanied by music. The sheer quantity and artistry of the food were a testament to the Medici's limitless resources and their desire to overwhelm their guests with their generosity. These feasts were also crucial social events, allowing diplomats and nobles to mingle, strengthen connections, and discuss political matters in an atmosphere of unparalleled luxury. Public events also included elaborate jousts and mock battles staged in the grand piazzas of Florence. Knights in splendid armor, often representing the French and Florentine courts, competed in displays of martial prowess. These events drew immense crowds of Florentines who cheered on the participants. The jousts were not just for entertainment, they were a continuation of the chivalric tradition, reminding observers of the noble lineage and martial strength associated with both the French crown and the Medici Grand Duchy. The entire city became a stage for these magnificent celebrations, showcasing the Medici's complete control over their domain and their ability to organize events on a scale that few other European courts could match. The immense dowry Maria brought to France was a critical part of the diplomatic exchange. It was not just a personal gift, but a substantial investment in the French crown, allowing Henry IV to pay off debts and rebuild his kingdom. This financial infusion underscored the Medici's role as powerful allies and financiers to European monarchs. In return, Maria received a magnificent trousseau and a vast array of jewels from the French king, further enhancing her personal wealth and status. The total cost of the Florentine celebrations alone was staggering, estimated to be over 1.5 million scudi, an astronomical sum for the era. However, Ferdinando I saw this as a necessary investment. The diplomatic goals of this wedding were multifaceted to secure a direct and powerful alliance with the French monarchy, to elevate the Medici family to the highest echelons of European royalty through Maria's queenship, to demonstrate Florence's unparalleled wealth and cultural sophistication, and to secure the future of the Medici dynasty through this high-profile connection. The wedding of Maria de' Medici and Henry IV of France was an unmitigated success, cementing the Medici's influence on the European stage and providing them with a direct stake in French politics for decades to come. Number 1, Catherine de' Medici and Henry, Duke of Orleans. The year is 1533. The Medici family stands at a precarious moment. While Florence had recently seen the return of Medici rule under Duke Alessandro, their authority was still contested, and their position in the complex web of Italian and European politics was far from secure. Pope Clement VII, born Giulio de' Medici, was a shrewd politician determined to elevate his family's standing. He envisioned a truly unprecedented alliance, marrying his niece, Catherine de' Medici, to Henry, Duke of Orleans, the second son of King Francis I of France. This was a bold and audacious diplomatic move. It aimed to forge a direct, unbreakable link with the most powerful monarchy in Europe, France. Such a union would provide the Medici with unparalleled protection, influence, and legitimacy on the international stage, far beyond what any Florentine banking family had ever dreamed of achieving. The stakes were incredibly high, and the entire continent watched with bated breath. The journey of Catherine from Florence to Marseille, where the wedding would take place, was a spectacle in itself. She traveled with an immense retinue, including her own kitchen staff, personal physicians, and even a company of jesters and performers. Most importantly, she brought an enormous dowry, 130,000 gold florins, valuable jewels, furnishings, and a vast collection of artworks, including a complete library. Chroniclers of the time were astonished by the sheer scale of her wealth. This dowry was not just money. It was a tangible demonstration of Medici wealth and cultural sophistication designed to impress the French court and solidify their new relationship. The journey was slow, marked by numerous stops where Catherine was presented to local dignitaries, her every movement a carefully managed public event. The wedding ceremony was not held in Florence, but in Marseille, France, a port city chosen for its strategic location. Pope Clement VII himself traveled to France to officiate the marriage, a truly extraordinary gesture that underscored the immense significance of the union. The ceremony was held in the Église Saint-Victor, a grand setting. King Francis I, Henry's father, was present, along with the highest-ranking nobles of France and ambassadors from across Europe. Catherine, only 14 years old, stood beside her intended Henry, who was also 14. She wore a gown of breathtaking splendor, embroidered with gold and pearls, a clear symbol of her family's opulence. The Pope's presence, lending his direct blessing, bestowed an unparalleled spiritual and political weight upon the union. It was a formal ratification of an alliance that would reshape European politics for decades. The festivities that followed the wedding ceremony in Marseille were of a truly royal scale, reflecting the power and wealth of the French monarchy and the Medici's contribution. The King Francis I, a monarch renowned for his love of grandeur, ensured the celebrations were unforgettable. Banquets were held daily, lasting for hours, featuring an astonishing array of dishes. Accounts from the time describe tables laden with exotic meats, intricate pastries, and elaborate sugar sculptures, all served on gold and silver platters. Wines flowed freely from enormous casks. These banquets were more than just meals. They were carefully choreographed social events, allowing the French and Medici entourages to interact, forge personal relationships, and discuss matters of state in an atmosphere of unparalleled luxury. The sheer abundance of food and drink, combined with the continuous entertainment, aimed to create an impression of limitless wealth and power. Beyond the feasting, the wedding celebrations included elaborate jousting tournaments and chivalric games. Knights, dressed in magnificent armor and mounted on richly caparisoned horses, competed in displays of skill and bravery. These tournaments were a staple of Renaissance courtly life, providing thrilling entertainment and a chance to showcase martial prowess. The king himself often participated, adding to the excitement. The crowds, both noble and common, gathered to watch these displays, reinforcing the image of a powerful and thriving monarchy. The atmosphere was one of joyous celebration and martial pride. One of the most unique aspects of the festivities was the introduction of Italian cultural innovations to the French court. Catherine brought with her not just wealth, but also a retinue of Florentine artists, chefs, perfumers, and entertainers. This cultural exchange was subtle but profound. Her Florentine chefs introduced new culinary techniques and dishes to the French court, laying the groundwork for what would become sophisticated French cuisine. Her passion for dance and theatrical spectacle, inherited from the Medici's love of the arts, led to the development of new forms of court entertainment in France, including elaborate ballets and masques, which would later influence the French ballet tradition. While not directly a wedding event, the immediate aftermath saw the subtle but powerful introduction of Italian Renaissance aesthetics and customs to the French court. The diplomatic goals of this wedding were crystal clear: to secure a direct, personal, and enduring alliance with France, one of Europe's two superpowers. For the Medici, this marriage provided vital protection against their rivals in Italy and legitimized their often contested rule in Florence by linking them to the highest echelons of European royalty. For France, the marriage offered a massive dowry, a potential future queen, and a valuable connection to the powerful Florentine banking network. The immense cost of the wedding and the dowry, though borne primarily by the Pope and the Medici, was viewed as a strategic investment. The wedding of Catherine de' Medici and Henry, Duke of Orleans, was a resounding diplomatic success. It cemented the Medici's position as a dynastic power, providing Catherine with a springboard that would ultimately lead her to become one of the most influential and powerful queens in French history, forever linking the fortunes of the Medici with the crown of France.